I've always taken the 12:15 a.m. train from Penn Station to Long Beach. After late-night shifts, it's quiet, predictable, and mostly empty on weekdays. Just a few other sleepy commuters and the occasional drunk kid nodding off after a night out in Manhattan. I've ridden that line for years. Never thought much of it, until last night. Last night I fell asleep somewhere past Jamaica Station, and woke up somewhere else. The ride started out normal. I boarded, found a window seat, plugged in my headphones, and texted my roommate on the train. Buda 120. Then I leaned back, closed my eyes, and let the gentle rhythm of the train rock me to sleep. I remember my head lolling to the side, the hum of the tracks beneath me, the soft whoosh of the sliding doors, then silence. When I opened my eyes, the train was no longer moving. Outside the window, it was pitch black, not dark like a tunnel, dark like a void, the kind of darkness that swallows light. The lights inside the train were dimmer than they should have been, flickering like they were struggling to stay on. And the train car? Empty. No passengers, no conductor, no announcements, just the soft electric hum and the faint smell of burnt metal. I stood up, heart starting to pound. I moved to the next car, also empty. I walked through 4 more, all the same. No people, no noise, not even signs of anyone having ever been there. And the weirdest part? The ads were wrong. Every poster lining the train walls was faded, yellowed with age, and written in some language I didn't recognize. It looked like English at first glance, but the letters didn't make sense when I really looked, like someone trying to mimic the alphabet, but getting it just slightly off. I finally made my way to the conductor's booth. The door was open, but inside it was dark and abandoned. Dust covered every surface like it hadn't been touched in years. I picked up the old radio receiver and spoke into it. "Hello, anyone there?" Only static. The train lurched. Suddenly we were moving again. I stumbled back, heart racing, as the lights blinked hard and then stabilized into a sickly yellow glow. I pressed my face to the window, but outside was still that same impossible darkness. No tunnels, no city lights, no landscape. Just black. Like we were riding through the space between realities. I checked my phone. Dead. No signal, no time, nothing. Then finally we slowed to a stop. The doors hissed open, and that's when I realized we weren't in New York anymore. The platform outside was cracked and crumbling, covered in moss and vines. Half the lights overhead were shattered or missing. An old sign hung crooked from the ceiling, barely lit. It read, "Marrow Junction." I'd never heard of it. I stepped out cautiously, calling out again. My voice echoed like I was in a massive cave. The air was damp and cold, and the smell, it was wrong, like rot and ozone. And then I heard it, footsteps. But not regular ones. These were slow, uneven, dragging, like someone or something was limping along the far end of the platform. I ducked behind a pillar and held my breath. A shape emerged from the shadows. It was humanoid, but tall, too tall, at least 8 feet. Its limbs were disproportionate, arms hanging almost to its knees, head tilted unnaturally to one side. It didn't wear clothes, not really, just scraps of cloth clinging to grayish skin. Its eyes, if they were eyes, glowed faintly yellow. It sniffed the air, and then it turned toward me. I didn't wait. I sprinted back into the train, slamming the door button over and over until the doors groaned shut. The creature, whatever it was, let out a sharp, high-pitched wail and slammed its fists against the glass. The train jolted again and began to move. I collapsed into a seat, gasping, eyes locked on the retreating figure. It didn't follow. Not this time. But the moment the train started pulling away, I saw more of them, lurking in the shadows, lined up along the edges of the station like statues, watching, waiting. I passed out again not long after that. Maybe from panic, maybe from something else, I don't know. I woke up as we pulled into Long Beach. Bright morning light spilled through the windows. A conductor was walking down the aisle, asking for tickets like nothing had happened. I tried to explain, to ask where we'd stopped before, but he just looked confused, said there were no unscheduled stops, said I must have dreamed it. But it wasn't a dream. My phone still had no messages, no signal logs, no record of a call or text. And when I searched for Marrow Junction online, nothing came up. Not a town, not a station, not even an urban legend. It doesn't exist. At least not here. So now I sleep with the lights on, I don't take late trains anymore, I drive, always. Because I know what I saw. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I still hear the sound of that other train car echoing through the dark. And I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't run. And how many people fall asleep on late-night trains and never wake up again? I work the night shift for a freight train company based in Nevada. My job's simple: monitor the systems, log radio chatter, and make sure everything runs smooth while we travel across desert tracks, usually from midnight until dawn. The nights are long and boring, but it pays well, and honestly, I liked the quiet until last week now. I don't think I'll ever step foot on a train again. It started on a Wednesday night. I boarded our engine at 11:45 p.m. Same as always, just outside a yard near Sparks. We were running a long line of empty cars down to Arizona. Just the engine and one other crew member, Brandon, our conductor. He was a chill guy, late 30s, been working the rails way longer than me. As the train rumbled to life, Brandon handed me a thermos of coffee and gave me a nod. Easy run tonight. No stops till Flagstaff. Good, I said. I need a break from the chaos. We laughed. But I remember how weird the night felt even then. How quiet the yard had been. Like the world was holding its breath. By 2:30 a.m., we were deep in the middle of nowhere. No lights, no service. Just the rhythmic clanking of steel wheels and the low hum of the engine echoing across the desert. Brandon had gone back to check the cars, routine stuff, while I stayed in the cab, watching the GPS screen blink our location across empty grid lines. That's when we entered the tunnel. I didn't even remember seeing it on the route plan. It was long, unnaturally long. The lights from the front of the train barely lit more than a few feet ahead before being swallowed up by pitch black. And then everything went silent. Not just quiet, dead silent, like someone had pressed mute on the world. No engine rumble, no clack of the tracks, nothing. I sat up straight, blinking, trying to process what just happened. The screen in front of me froze, no movement, no signal. I tried the radio. Brandon? You there? Nothing, static. And then a thump. From somewhere behind the engine, a single heavy thud, like something dropping onto the top of the train car. I grabbed my flashlight, heart pounding, climbed down into the passage toward the back of the engine, calling out. Brandon? Silence. The air felt thick, wrong. Then I saw it, just for a second. Something was crawling along the side of the tunnel wall, just outside the window. Pale, long. It moved like an insect, but far too big. I blinked and it was gone, swallowed up by the darkness. I ran back into the engine cab and tried the emergency brakes. No response. The control panel was dead. We were still moving, but the train had no power. That's when Brandon's voice came through on the radio, crackling, distorted. Did you see it? What? Where are you? I shouted. His voice faded into static, followed by a sound I'll never forget. A wet scraping noise, like something being dragged across metal. Then silence again. I panicked. I knew I had to stop the train. I grabbed the emergency override key and manually forced the brake release. Sparks screamed outside the window as the train screeched, slowing down. The tunnel around us was so dark that it looked like we were sinking into a void. I kept waiting for the headlights to hit the end of the tunnel. A wall, a sign, anything. But there was nothing. Just endless black. Finally, we came to a stop. I stepped down onto the tracks, flashlight in hand, calling out for Brandon. Brandon! Come on, man, say something. My voice bounced off the tunnel walls, then died. No hecho. No sound at all. That's when I noticed something else. The ground under the tracks. Wasn't solid. It looked like dirt. But when I stepped on it, it felt soft, like flesh. I knelt down and touched it. It pulsed beneath my hand. That's when I ran. I sprinted toward the back of the train, checking each car, yelling for Brandon. I made it halfway down the line before I saw the door to one of the cars hanging open. Blood smeared along the frame. I climbed inside, slowly, shaking, and found nothing but claw marks. Deep gouges in the metal floor and walls, like something with massive hands had torn through. No sign of Brandon, only a torn piece of his jacket caught on a bolt. And then I heard breathing. Not mine, not human, something deep, guttural, wet. I turned and saw it. At the far end of the car, crouched in the corner where the shadows were thickest, was a thing. Pale, stretched tight over bone, its head cocked at an unnatural angle. It had no eyes, just empty sockets. Its mouth hung open like it had forgotten how to close it. I didn't move. Neither did it. And then it spoke, in Brandon's voice. "Don't leave." I bolted out of the car and didn't stop until I was back in the engine. I slammed the door, locked it, and started trying every reset switch I knew. The engine flickered just once and the control panel came back online. The GPS flashed. We weren't in Arizona. We weren't even on the map. The coordinates made no sense. Somewhere out in the Pacific. Thousands of miles from the nearest track. I hit the reverse switch. The train groaned, wheels screeching against the tracks as I forced it backward. For a minute I thought it wouldn't move, but then we slowly began backing out. I didn't look out the window. I didn't listen to the sounds outside. I just stared straight ahead until the tunnel finally ended, and the moonlight hit the windshield. I collapsed in the seat, and then the train died again. This time I saw headlights coming up the track, another train. Rescue. They found me alone, shaking, dehydrated, and incoherent. No sign of Brandon. No tunnel on the route logs. No explanation. They ran tests, drug screenings, psych evals. They think I hallucinated, but I know what I saw. I worked the night shift on a train. Something was in the tunnels. Something that waits for people like us, travelers in the dark. And sometimes, it doesn't let them leave. I started working the night shift on the Crescent. Line in October, New York to New Orleans. It's not glamorous. You don't get scenic views. You get half-lit stations, quiet passengers, and long stretches of nothing but darkness pressing against the windows. My job's simple. Overnight car attendant. Mostly I walk through the cars, check that things are working, answer passenger requests, and keep an eye out for weirdos. The first few weeks were uneventful. A couple drunk college kids heading south, a woman with 2 cats, a guy who played harmonica at midnight, strange but harmless. Then the knocking started. The first time. It was 3:02 a.m. I remember because I just glanced at my watch, waiting for the next scheduled station in Virginia. The train was somewhere between Lynchburg and Danville, miles of thick forest and old track. I heard it knock, knock, knock coming from the rear bathroom in car 7. I was in car 6 doing my usual rounds. No passengers were booked for car 7 that night. It was empty. Technically off limits, but we left it open for overflow. So when I heard someone knocking from inside the locked bathroom back there, I thought maybe a passenger had wandered in. I walked through the connector, opened the door to car 7, and immediately felt a drop in temperature, like I'd stepped into a cooler. The lights in that car flickered once, then steadied. I walked down the narrow aisle. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was clearer now. It was coming from the bathroom. The door was closed. Red occupied light on. "Hello?" I called out, knocking gently. "You okay in there?" No answer, just silence. I checked the manifest. No one was supposed to be in this car. I tried the handle, still locked. "Sir or ma'am, I need you to unlock the door." Nothing. After about 30 seconds, I walked back to the staff car and radioed the conductor. He sounded groggy, told me to ignore it. Probably a malfunctioning lock light. "Those bathrooms jam sometimes," he said, except I'd heard the knocking. When I returned, the door was still locked, but the knocking had stopped. And somehow, that was worse. The second time. The next week, same shift. Different passengers. We were between Charlotte and Atlanta when I heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. 3:03 a.m. I froze. This time I was in car 5. Again, no one had been booked in car 7. Still, I forced myself to go check. The moment I opened the door to car 7, the air turned cold again. Not just chilly, like standing in front of an open freezer. The lights were dimmer, buzzing faintly overhead. My boots echoed more than usual against the floor. I reached the bathroom. Knock, knock, knock. It was softer this time. Slower. I didn't say anything. Just stood there, listening. Then I leaned close. I swear to God. I heard breathing, slow, wet. Inside that tiny compartment, I backed away. And that's when the knocking stopped, and I heard the latch click, the door unlocked. Creaked open maybe 2 inches. Nothing inside. Just the mirror, the stainless steel sink, and the toilet. No footsteps walking past me. No sound of a door opening elsewhere. Just nothing. I backed out of car 7 and didn't step foot in it again that night. The history. After that, I started asking around, quietly. Most crew didn't want to talk about it. Said it was just old train stuff. Bad electrical, cold drafts, metal creaks. One guy, Dave, who'd been on the Crescent Line for over a decade, finally gave me something real. "You heard the 3 a.m. knock, huh?" I nodded. "Don't open the door again," he said, "not all the way." "Why?" He looked away, "Because if you do, you let it out." He told me years ago, maybe 15 or 20, a man died in one of the bathrooms during an overnight trip. Alone. Overdose, they said. But when they found him, his face had been wrong. Twisted, like he'd died screaming. The weird part? The door had been locked from the inside, but no one had seen him enter. And afterward, sometimes, just sometimes, people reported hearing knocking from inside that same compartment. Always at 3 a.m., always with no one inside. "Just part of the route now," Dave muttered, "like a ghost station." The third time, I started keeping track. Every shift, I made a note of the time, the passengers, the weather. On nights when car 7 was empty, the knocking always came. Not every single night, but often enough that I started dreading 3 a.m. Then came the third time. We were near the Alabama state line. I just made myself coffee when I heard the sound again. Knock, knock, knock. This time, louder, almost frantic. Something was wrong. I walked toward car 7, flashlight in hand. As I stepped inside, the air hit me like a wall, wet, cold, and heavy. My breath came out in clouds. The lights above me dimmed. And I heard it again, not just knocking now. Scraping, like nails dragging down the inside of the door. I raised the flashlight. The handle jiggled. Something was trying to open it from the inside. And then I saw it. The outline of a hand pressing against the frosted glass of the small bathroom window. The fingers were far too long. I ran. Aftermath. The next morning, I asked the conductor to decommission car 7 for repairs. Claimed there was a leak or bad wiring. He didn't ask questions. The bathroom has been marked out of service ever since. Still, sometimes when I walk past it late at night, I hear things. Dripping water, faint knocking. Sometimes I find the bathroom door open an inch, just like before. I don't go near it. Final warning. If you ever take an overnight train, especially one that runs down the East Coast and you hear knocking at 3 a.m., don't answer it. Don't knock back. And for the love of God, don't open the door. Because whatever's in there, it's still waiting. And it remembers. I've been working for Amtrak for the past 7 years, mostly on the long-distance routes, the kind that crawl through the country's underbelly at night past forgotten towns, rusted factories and woods darker than the sky itself. This happened on the Lakeshore Limited, heading eastbound from Chicago to New York. It was late October. Just as the air started to bite, the trees were bare, the towns we passed felt colder than usual, and the nights were too quiet. But none of that bothered me, not until the night we passed that station, the one that wasn't supposed to exist. 1:34 a.m., somewhere in western Pennsylvania. We'd just left Erie. The tracks were empty. The world outside black except for the occasional flicker of lights from distant houses. I was standing in the staff car, sipping lukewarm coffee and flipping through my tablet. Nothing unusual. Then came a call from the conductor's radio. "Hey, anyone have a station listed for?" Coldwell?" Static followed. I frowned. "Say again?" I responded. "I think we just passed a station," said Coldwell Station on the platform sign. Didn't see it on the manifest or route map. I pulled up our scheduled stops. Nothing. No town named Coldwell. No station in that section of track. That's when the assistant engineer chimed in. It was there. I saw it too. Old platform. Looked abandoned, except he hesitated. There was someone standing on it. An unscheduled sight. I made my way to the engine room. A few minutes later to get a better look at the surveillance feed. We have forward-facing cameras on most lines now. Black and white video. Not great quality, but enough to spot hazards. I scrubbed back to the last few minutes. There it was. A short cracked platform appearing out of the darkness. No lights, no signs of life. Except for one thing. Someone was standing there, a figure, unmoving, arms at their side, back straight, wearing what looked like a long coat or robe. Hard to tell in the grainy feed, but what made my skin crawl was the fact that they didn't look up, didn't wave, didn't even flinch as the massive engine roared by, just stood there perfectly still. I paused the footage and zoomed in. Their face was pale, almost blank, and even though it was blurry, I swear it looked like they were smiling. The records don't lie, right? Back in the lounge car, I asked one of the newer conductors, Matt, if he'd ever heard of a Coldwell station. He shook his head. That stretch is nothing but trees and farmland. I've done this line dozens of times. There's no Coldwell. He wasn't wrong. I spent the next 30 minutes searching through every available database. I had access to Amtrak logs, old route maps, even local Pennsylvania rail history forums. Nothing. No Coldwell station. No Coldwell town. Like it had never existed, except 4 of us saw it. The second night. I figured it was a fluke. Maybe a decommissioned platform, a ghost town even, flickering old-fashioned lamps mounted to rusted iron poles. The figure was there too. Same posture, same pale face, except now there were 2 figures, standing side by side. No one else sees it. I took screenshots from the video, feed and tried, to bring it up with my supervisor in Albany. He was polite but firm. There's no Coldwell station. If there was, it would be on the ledger. You're probably seeing an old coal stop. We've got hundreds of those out here. I showed him the footage. The paused frame. He leaned forward, squinted at it. There's nothing there. That's when it clicked. He couldn't see it. Or maybe something didn't want him to. The third encounter. 2 weeks later. We were routed through that corridor again due to freight congestion. I was already on edge before we even left Buffalo. Around 1 a.m. I sat in the crew lounge, eyes fixed on the window, waiting. We were approaching the mile marker. My heart pounded. And then, there it was, the platform. Except this time, it wasn't abandoned. People stood along the edge, dozens of them, men, women, children, all silent, all still, all watching the train as it passed. Their faces were lifeless, eyes wide open. Some were holding suitcases. Others just stood with their arms dangling, but they all shared that same blank, chilling smile. One of them raised their hand and pointed. Directly at my window, I stumbled back. When I blinked again, the platform was gone. Passenger manifest error? The creepiest part? That same morning, I got an alert on my tablet. Passenger boarding error. Coldwell Station, Car 3, manifest conflict. We don't stop at Coldwell. It's not real. But the system logged a boarding from there. Car 3. I rushed over. Car 3 was mostly empty. Just a sleeping couple and a man in a business suit. Except, when I reached the rear end of the car, I saw a woman sitting alone in the last row. Long, dark coat, pale skin, black eyes that didn't reflect the light. I blinked. She was gone. Seat was empty. Final note. I'm writing this now because I recently got reassigned. New route, West Coast. I'm relieved. But I know that someday, maybe years from now, I'll have to cross that stretch of track again. And when I do, I know Coldwell Station will be there, waiting, with more people on the platform, and one day, one of them will get on. And this time, they won't disappear. They'll sit down, buckle in, and ride in silence mile after mile until the rest of us realize that they never really came on board. They were already here,